This is Launching Your Daughter podcast, and I'm your host, Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist. The information shared in this podcast is not a substitute for seeking help from a licensed mental health professional. Now, here is today's episode. Episode 5. Welcome. My guest today is Kirsten Goffney, and she is a licensed professional counselor, registered play therapist, national certified counselor, and a level 2 EMDR practitioner. She is the owner of Pathfinders Counseling, LLC, and located in Fort Collins, Colorado. She offers a variety of types of experiential therapy, such as play therapy, sand play, animal-assisted, and she works systemically. And what that means is she works with the children and the parents or the whole family. She has a newsletter in which she does life hacks, and I will include her website information in my show notes. Today, we are talking about how play therapy and animal-assisted therapy not only works with younger children, but with teenagers and their parents. And we talk about how these two types of experiential works can help decrease anxiety and improve relationships. Here's the interview. So welcome. I am so excited today. I have Kirsten Goffney, LPC, and she's in Fort Collins, Colorado. She's with me today to talk a little bit about play therapy and how she uses it with children and families, and also animal-assisted therapy. So welcome so much, Kirsten.
Thank you, Nicole. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'd kind of like to just jump right in here. And can you tell us a little bit about both the play therapy and how you use it with your kids that you work with and teens, and also how you use animal-assisted therapy?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, these types of therapies are sort of known as experiential therapy. And really how it differs from sort of traditional talk therapy is that you're involving the whole being. It's very holistic. So you're not just dealing with the cognitive aspect, the thinking, the mind, but you're also dealing with, your body. It's body-centered, somatic, it can be called. You're using movement, maybe music and dance and play. And in addition to that, you're sort of integrating those parts. And so, that's where the holistic piece comes in. It's sort of very broad. Mm-hmm. But with play therapy and young children, they basically don't have the language, don't have the cognitive capacity or ability to be able to tell a therapist what's wrong, what's really going on, but they can play that out. Language, play is their language and toys are their words. And so they come into the playroom and express themselves using the toys. With older children, so age 12 and up, and the teenagers, I use play in a little bit different way. Obviously, they're going to be able to express themselves cognitively as well. But I use things like art, and music, and maybe even we go out in nature and take the dog for a walk and just get out of the therapy room and moving our bodies. And that can just really encourage them to feel a lot more relaxed and be able to start trusting the process and trusting their therapist and, just really engaging, which is what we want. The animal-assisted therapy, really, I have a therapy dog. Her name is Luna. She's amazing. And just her presence in the room helps clients, helps children, helps everybody feel relaxed and calm. And petting a dog, I mean, there's all kinds of research that talks about, the sort of calming of the nervous system, just sort of a general anxiety reduction, having an animal and, being able to pet it. So, yeah, so that's how I use those two modalities.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I love that it's not the traditional talk therapy. The way you talk about it is very holistic. It includes not only the mind, but the body and the spirit. And I know for teens especially, right, the experiential piece of it, there's so much about that because they try and express a lot of times their feelings or what they're going through music. And to be able to do that in the office with you and or outside and even with Luna, that's awesome because they can embody that and then you get to witness that as well with them and then working with their parents and how they express that too. That's great.
Yes. Absolutely, beautifully stated. Yes, it's exactly what it's like. It's a wonderful experience.
Tell me just a little bit more. I know you talked about with Luna for the animal assisted, it can, just the petting in and of itself, and you're absolutely correct. There's lots and lots of research out there of how working with animals or being with animals definitely can calm the system down and the nervous system down. How does the play therapy piece of it, if you have a teenager that's really struggling with maybe kind of overachieving or being perfect or has depression, or maybe there's been some past traumas, how does the play therapy piece work with that type of client?
Oh my goodness. So, I would say anxiety is the number one issue that children come in with these days. Definitely depression is there too, but anxiety is huge. This sort of perfectionism, this, having to do it right, having to, fit in and belong and be the way society is telling you to be. There's a lot of pressure on kids these days. And so coming into a room where a child can just, or a teenager can, sort of more be themselves and use their own language, for want of a better word. It's a lot more, it's a lot less threatening, and it's just a lot more inviting than, a lot of, I'm sort of backing up a little bit, but, I'm thinking about a lot of parents will bring their children to therapy and it's sort of like, here, fix my kid. And so, when children come to therapy, they very often feel like there's something wrong with them. I use the experiential therapies that I use to help kids learn to understand themselves and accept themselves better, and eventually, hopefully, get to really value and love themselves, and be able to sort of express themselves authentically in the world and not try and be somebody they're not, because I see that as the underlying cause of all of this anxiety and depression, right?
Yes. So then how does that, you've talked about how you work with the kids and the teens, which is just, I love it that they get that inner, as they're trying to figure out who they are, they've got a place that you can hold them that, again, really allows them to shine that authentic piece, their authentic selves to come out. How then does that translate into then working with the parents?
Now that's a wonderful question. So I absolutely want to bring parents into the therapeutic process whenever I can, which is always. Some parents are less willing to do that or more resistant to that, but that's absolutely my model, is to bring the parents in as well, because really the children are functioning within multiple systems, and one of the most important system is the family system and their relationship with their parents. And so having the parents be a part of therapy is just talking about the sort of holistic piece. It's sort of, completing that circle, and making it more whole. It really helps therapy sort of move to a whole other dimension, if the parents are involved. And so I will sometimes see a child one week and the parent the next week. Or sometimes I'll see a child for 3 or 4 weeks and then have a joint session, or just see the parent alone. And there are many ways that I will do that based on what the presenting problems are and what the comfort level of the parent is. But I really see a lot of progress when the kids have been working hard in therapy, and then they can sort of show their parents in a joint session what they've learned, whether it's being more assertive or whether it's sort of, speaking, having their voice heard. I find a lot of times, that's really what's missing, is that the child doesn't feel like they can be themselves, that they're not going to be accepted for that. And so being able to verbalize what they need to a parent in my presence can be really empowering.
Yes, very much. And I love that you come from the system standpoint. That's my background as well, where it's all about the systems, and it's a whole. It's not just, there's little pieces in there, but everything fits together. So that's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. I know you've also talked about, I believe in some previous posts that you've done, and I will put this out on the resource page as well, or at the end of the show notes. You talked quite a bit about how sometimes parents will feel very vulnerable, or that there's shame that comes up for them when their child is struggling. And you really work with them as well about being that they're okay and they're doing their best and trying to help them with their own fears and anxieties.
Oh, Nicole, I'm so glad you asked that question. Absolutely, 100,000%. It's Yes, there is so much shame in parenting these days. And that's really what got me into this career, which I started when my own kids were teenagers, not that long ago. And what I was seeing, I was working in the school system, and what I was seeing was just parent blaming and shaming left, right, and center. It was so disrespectful. Well, it is so disrespectful. And not only from schools and teachers and administration, but also from other parents, which
Yeah.
blew my mind because I'm thinking, gosh, aren't we in this altogether? It's hard enough being a parent, especially with the advent of social media,
Right.
which has really just sort of added a whole new dimension of challenge and difficulty to an already really difficult job. And yeah, I really work with parents to, know that all parents I've worked with, and I can honestly say all parents I've worked with are literally doing the best that they can. They love their kids unconditionally and they want them to succeed. And they are doing all that they can to make that happen. So yeah, that's huge. And I'm really, really glad, like I said, that you brought that to the table.
Well, I love it because I know a lot of times there will be parents that'll come in and they kind of like, oh, here, fix the kid, like you had said earlier. And it's more than that, because if the parents can address their own fears and, like you said, really for us to be able to support them, that you're doing the best that you can, and maybe here's some more tools, or let's explore maybe old family beliefs and how we can change that. It really then opens up the opportunity for that whole family to do some healing and to work through those fears and not hold on to them.
Yes. Yeah. Bingo. That's it. That's the magic.
It's beautiful. Well, I'm looking at, there's so many benefits to both the play therapy and the animal assisted. Not only is it, they're both experiential, but what you're working with, allowing the teens or the kids to be more authentic and holding them in that space in play therapy. And when Luna is there, it's the same concept then for the parents of holding them where they are and reassuring them that they are enough and that they are doing the best that they can. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yes, and really, really encouraging parents to look after themselves. I think, that's one thing that I see as a missing piece all over the place. Parents give so much to others, especially to their children, and they just pour out of their hearts and their psyches and their selves, into volunteering at schools and, doing everything they can. And they have lost that ability or capacity or permission. Maybe permission is the right word, to look after themselves, to care for themselves, to nurture themselves. And, I would say for any parent listening to this podcast, your self-care, your ability to model to your children that you are important is huge. And, it's just not talked about enough. And parents, it's a pretty high burnout kind of job, right? I mean, it's 24/7 and it never stops. And, when you have challenges, when your kids have, they're developmentally different, or they might be highly sensitive or suffer from anxiety or whatever it might be, then it becomes exponentially harder, which means then that parents have to start with themselves and model that for their kids and help the whole family, the whole sort of calming the nervous system of the whole family, if you will, right? So making sure that the whole family they're the center of that. And so, yeah, parents looking after themselves is just so key.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yes, that's a huge benefit. Yeah. I'm so glad you just addressed that. That was beautiful. And again, you can't see me shaking my head, yes, but I'm like, yes, that's it. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, one other thing I'd like to talk about is, based on either your parents or the children and or the teens, is there a book or a piece of advice that you sometimes give them throughout the treatment or as you're closing with them? What sort of thing would, I guess, you recommend to some of our listeners?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I am a bookaholic. Amazon One Click is my thing. And there are just so many good ones out there. I think, most recently, one of my favorite authors is Brene Brown, and her latest book about the gift of imperfection is amazing. I think everyone needs to read it. I think I know your podcast is launching your, teenage girls, and I think there's a book called The Defining Decade by Meg Jay. And it talks about the 20s and why they matter so much. And I just think for, girls who are graduating high school and launching, that's just a wonderful resource as well. And I think, anything that has to do with emotional intelligence, Goleman and Daniel Siegel, I could go on and on because I just love to read. I'm a geek.
I could second that. So yes. And there's definitely, have some book recommendations out on the podcast. So I really appreciate the one in the 20s. I'll look that up and read that because, there's so much good information. And I think sometimes there's some not so good information out there. And to be able to give both parents and the girls some resources they can look at, read, or listen to, whatever can help. It's awesome. I love it.
And I think too, if I can add one more here, I think, I don't know if you've heard of Stuart Brown, but he has a book where the title is Play. And it really talks about why play is so important. And it talks about why play is important through the lifetime, not just with children, and why it's important to keep that in your life. And I think, if I had a tip for parents, it would be continue to play with your kids, even when they're adults, just keeping that fun-loving and, innocent connection is just so beautiful.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, well, thank you so much. Those are great recommendations, and I'll have them out under the show notes as well. So, I love it. Thank you so much, Kirsten. I really appreciate you doing this podcast and sharing a little more about what play therapy is, also what animal-assisted therapy is, and thanks to Luna for all of her hard work as well. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Nicole. It's been a pleasure, and I'm just really excited about this podcast and the work you're doing.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to Launching Your Daughter with Nicole Burgess, licensed marriage and family therapist. For more information or to stay up to date, go to launchingyourdaughter.com. You can sign up for my email list or join my Facebook group. Thank you.